This is wild and it has huge ramifications on the future of the Spurs as the Hawks' recent move, parting ways with their GM, just outlines how incredible the Spurs' future now looks, even with Peter Holt making some incredible comments about his plans moving forward, the Spurs' master plan to create an absolute dynasty. We got to dive into everything that happened with Atlanta, now the locked in draft pick odds for this year's draft, and Peter Holt's comments. We got a lot of stuff we got to break down on this episode of Spurs Digest. Quick reminder though, guys, well over half of you are still not subscribed. Hit the free button down below. I know the playoffs are going on, but we got your Spurs news here all off season long. So if you want a home for it, this is the spot to be. Let's dive right into it. And I want to start with Peter Holt. And, the management group has been great, to say the least, for the last 20 years plus, right? We all love the management group to some capacity. I think they've done a pretty good job. And just looking at the outlook of the future right now for the Spurs, I mean, it's hard not to be optimistic. We look at the players we have, a guy like Victor Wembanyama, Sochan, even De'Aaron Fox, an all-NBA level guard, Vassell, Keldon Johnson, not to mention whoever we draft this year or sign in free agency or trade for. There's so many amazing guys. But I want to dive into the quote that just came out yesterday. And I wanted to just highlight this as it paints a very clear picture to me as to where this direction is going. Peter Holt said, "We don't want a roller coaster between victories and defeats. We want to build a superpower, an ultra competitive team that lasts for a long time." And you know what? Yeah, I mean, that almost seems obvious on the surface of it. Of course, you're going to want to hear anyone say this kind of thing. But what I like most about this is it does show that self-awareness of we know what made the Spurs great for the last multiple decades, 3 decades basically at this point. We know that building a consistent core that works well together, that's not just bringing in a guy from here to have a great year or bringing in this guy here for 1 or 2 years to figure it. No, it's all about the bigger plan. So to me, this actually, all this KD talk we've been doing about, look, I know I've made it clear I don't want it to happen. I know you guys don't want it to happen. And this makes it clear that that's not going to happen. Bringing in KD for 1 year doesn't build that kind of solid base that continues to go for a long time. That just gives you that kind of maybe peak and valley, that variation year to year. So hearing this from Peter Holt, I know we already had a lot of optimism with the ownership group, with the management group, front office, all that stuff. But I don't know. It just gives me that sense of security that the Spurs, we knew this, but they're not going to go in over their heads, right? They're going to go in very cold, very calculated, knowing what we need and executing the best for us. So just wanted to highlight that before we dive into this video because not every organization tends to operate in that same way. And look, I'm going to dive into Atlanta in a second, but I want to dive into the draft picks for us this year first because I think it all ties together. So, there are some big ramifications on the Spurs for the future, but right now, let's just focus on the draft. Stick around for the end because there's some stuff I do want to show you guys, but I want to talk about this. This actually comes from Reddit. I will link the post down below so you can give the original Our Horrifying Planet the credit they deserve for putting up this chart, and I'm going to show it here in the video. Again, go check it out. Leave them some love. But this is the final update. NBA Draft Lottery will be on May 12th. We're just over 2 weeks away. I guess, 3 weeks away now? About 3 weeks away from the recording of this video. And we know the exact odds of the Spurs getting a good pick. We got the coin flip. It's all decided. The Atlanta Hawks land at number 14 in this draft lotto, with the chance, of course, to move up to 1, 2, 3, or 4. That being a lottery pick after the Hawks ended the season was absolutely huge for San Antonio. I don't think I need to say that again. Keenan talked about that in the recent video. Crazy stuff. But now we know the exact odds of a top 4 chance. The Spurs themselves, 26.3, the Hawks, 3.4. The combined odds of at least one top 4 draft pick, 28.8%. That's nearly, it's between a quarter and a third, obviously, but nearly a third chance, nearly a 33% chance that we'll get a top 4 pick. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy to think about? Again, the Atlanta pick, the Spurs pick's doing some heavy lifting here, but even that little boost from Atlanta, right, brings it from about 1 and 4 to, a little bit less than 1 and 3. Not to mention, we have a 6.7% chance at the number 1 overall pick. Those little numbers can go a long way. Again, we need some draft lottery luck, but looking at the draft right now, a top 4 pick could be huge. I put the points per game up here. I know some people like to use per 36, but this comes from Tankathon. Look, Cooper Flag, the odds of getting him, as much as I'd love him, it's capture the flag season. We all know that. He would change the Spurs. I don't even need to say that, obviously. But regardless, the top 3, even top 4, 5, all look pretty good. Concanuple's moving up these draft ranks now. He was mocked to us at 8 for a while. Now he's climbing a bit into 6th. But you got guys like Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Tre Johnson, again, one of those guys that looks very much like a pure scorer, needs to round out his game a bit. But You never know how much of a game breaker he could be in a couple of years at the NBA level. Getting a top 4 pick would just make this team perfect. And you know what? Even if the odds are not in our favor, or I guess technically the odds are in the favor of the way the odds should be. We got that 70% chance of picking at number 8 and number 14, or 8 or 9 and 14. That's probably what's going to happen. What I love about this is when you look at these mock drafts, right? Even at that 8 or 9 or 14 position, the Spurs love to kind of just pick their guy, maybe not necessarily the guy that's mocked to them right there, the top prospect available. We might reach a little bit, pick a guy that we feel fits the team best after draft interviews, stuff like that. But I wanted to just say, like, no matter who the Spurs want to go for, there's a myriad of positions you can pick from. Let's say at pick 8, right? You got Jeremiah Fears here mocked at Tankathon. You're going to see different players at different mocks. Point guard, right out of Oklahoma, 6'4" point guard. Great player. I really like Jeremiah Fears. He operates the pick and roll very well. But again, is there much future there at the point guard position on the Spurs? I don't know. But then you got Derek Queen, a center. You got Asa Newell, a power forward. Then you got a combo guard in Kasparis Yakashonis, right? Jace Richardson, combo guard, a power forward, Colin Murray Boyles. There's so many different positions that no matter what the Spurs want to go for, there's going to be an option. So that's why I'm extremely optimistic about this draft. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this now. What do you think about the final lottery odds being there and who the Spurs could go pick? I know Keenan talked about it a bit. Brian talked about it a bit. There's a lot of names there. I want to hear your thoughts, but it's not just this year. That's kind of the big thing I want to talk about here. It's not just this year, because we all know what just happened in Atlanta. And you know what? Maybe you didn't hear. Maybe you didn't hear, and you're hearing it here for the first time, that Landry Fields, their general manager, got hired as an assistant GM in 2020. He was the AGM when that DeJounte Murray trade originally went down. Travis Schlenk was the official GM in Atlanta when the Spurs traded DeJounte Murray for 4 first-round picks from the Atlanta Hawks, right? That trade that's still paying dividends now. But it's very interesting because some Hawks fans were high on Fields, some were not. I mean, last year they were maybe not so much. This year a little bit more. The young core is coming along. Picking Ricochet at number 1 looks like the right decision if that's the position that they wanted to go. Again, it was Ricochet or Sarr, but they seem to make the right choice in Ricochet, even though Castle's probably going to be the best rookie out of that class, the best player out of that class, in our opinion, of course. Made a good pick there. He seemed to have the team, the Atlanta Hawks, going in the right direction. They had a real vision for the first time in a while, right? They built up this team. They seem to have a future. Tre Young got a few more years. Onyeka Okongwu on a very solid rookie extension there, $14-15 million a year. Ricochet, we got him there for a few years. Terrence Mann, that contract looks pretty bad, but we'll put that to the side. I mean, but you managed to get back a guy like Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance, trading away DeJounte Murray. You even got Jalen Johnson, and honestly, I think that $30 million is going to look like a steal. So why am I just praising the Atlanta Hawks? Well, because I think what Landry Fields did and having his vision for the team made a lot of sense. And firing him, I think it just introduces a bunch of turmoil in Atlanta, which is great news for Spurs fans. Because again, reminder guys, in 2026, we have a pick swap with Atlanta. And in 2027, again, we just straight up have the Atlanta Hawks pick. So again, 2026, we either take our own or Atlanta's, whichever one's better. So that might not end up conveying, but honestly, the fact is, the Spurs look like they're poised to have a better season than Atlanta next year with a fully healthy Wembanyama, fully healthy De'Aaron Fox, and whatever offseason moves are made. So even if Atlanta doesn't fall off the face of a cliff, we should still get that pick next year. And 2027, regardless of what happens, we'll get it. And again, with the turmoil that's been introduced to this Atlanta Hawks organization, they promoted their assistant GM, and it's like he has very little experience in that position at all, right? You barely find pictures of the guy. It's like, I don't know. Whenever you do something like that, and ownership gets rid of a guy that gave your team a clear vision, there was no real reason, I think, to get rid of Landry Fields. I mean, some fans didn't love him, of course. Maybe he wasn't the best GM in the world, but the team had a vision. Maybe they're going to continue down that road, but this kind of uncertainty, again, I think bodes very well for us in these draft picks. And, I am getting a little tired of talking about the Atlanta Hawks when it relates to the Spurs, but, again, when you look at the draft picks, I can't really help it. There's a reason I'm talking about this. The Spurs are going to profit from Atlanta not playing well. And depending on the front office vision right now, the front office vision in Atlanta, you never know if one of these big names could get moved out. Again, Tre Young got that option in 2026-27. He might only have next year left there, 2025-26. And it's like, you start to wonder, what does the future look like? Do they think they should trade him? Are they going to kind of go all in on a mini rebuild here and try to get Okongwu and Ricochet there in their primes with Jalen Johnson, kind of build up some young guys now so that those guys are hitting their prime in 3-4 years and, make that work? Again, without their draft pick this year, I don't really know how that's going to work. So regardless, there's a lot of questions coming out of Atlanta right now. It has huge ramifications on the Spurs' future, but everything's looking up for us. Like there's no bad news coming out right now. Everything looks great. The management, the ownership group saying the right things about how we want to build a dynasty. Don't be a flash in the pan. Don't have peaks and valleys. Build that solid, sustainable core, just like we did. It's still gonna be hard to do like the same thing of what we did with the big three, but I think something like that's kind of possible. Seeing with the way the draft lottery is shaking out this year, seeing the way Atlanta is looking a bit strange right now, I can't help but be very excited. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Let me know your thoughts on everything going on right now this offseason, because it's getting crazy, and I just know it's going to get even crazier and probably a lot better for all of us Spurs fans. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.